ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनाशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्ता स्वामिनेति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौ भक्तवृंद। Together, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So some of us are meeting after probably a month. आप में से कितने लोग वृंदावन यात्रा में आए थे? हाथ खड़ा करिए. All right. Some of you were there for Vrindavan Yatra. How many of you were there last Sunday? We had this Ram Navami plus Value Education Award function. All right, all right. Those of you sitting in back, if you wish, you can move forward, or if you're comfortable at the back seat, totally fine. That's okay. All right, so we are on this Gita Unplugged series. आप में से कितने लोग पहली बार आए हैं? Okay, so ये आपका पहला program है. So this program would be in English language. I hope it's okay. English is fine. Okay. Sunday evenings we do program in Hindi, and Saturday evening in English. So this Gita Unplugged program is based on Bhagavad Gita, and the Bhagavad Gita has 18 chapters, and these 18 chapters are divided into 3 sections of Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, and Jnana Yoga. Karma Yoga is chapter 1 to chapter 6. That was our first part of Gita Unplugged. How many of you are professionals working here? You're a working individual. And how many of you are not professionals but still working as a housewife, as a mother, whatever, The nature of this world is everyone has to work. And the first 6 chapters are so important for all of us who have any responsibility or any duty to perform on everyday basis. It teaches us how to perform our duty. Work and yet not get attached and entangled. Work smarter, not harder. Many things like that we discussed in the first 6 chapters. That's Karma Yoga. The next part was Bhakti Yoga, chapter 7 to chapter 12. And the subject matter is, what is the goal of life? Everything in this creation has a purpose. Everything. The mic has a purpose. This rooftop has a purpose. Everything has a purpose. So what's the purpose of human form of life? The purpose of human form of life is to practice yoga. And the goal of yoga, the word yoga, the Sanskrit word, which means to connect oneself with the Supreme Lord. Bhakti Yoga means to develop one's loving relationship with the Lord. The forgotten relationship, to reawaken that forgotten relationship with the Lord is called as Bhakti Yoga. So that was the second part. And now we are here on the third and the final section or segment of Bhagavad Gita, which is called as Jnana Yoga section, from chapter 13 to chapter 18. Generally, when you all come for this program, I always request our participants to carry a copy of Bhagavad Gita. How many of you have a copy of Bhagavad Gita right now? So good. Those of you who have come for the first time, if you don't have a copy, later on you can pick a copy from the back, and it will really help you to go through when we are discussing. So at least you become a little familiar with the Sanskrit and also with how the verses are played out. So before I begin our discussion here, it's a good practice to do a quick recap. But this time I'm not going to do a recap. I'm going to ask all of you to do a recap. How many of you have attended the first 2 segments of Gita Unplugged? Karma Yoga and Bhakti Yoga. How many of you had been present for that? Raise your hand. घबराओ मत, कॉन्फिडेंटली हाथ खड़ा करो. आप घबरा गए, मैं आपको पिक नहीं करने वाला, बस मैं इतना देखना चाहता हूँ कितने लोग थे. हाथ खड़ा करो, ऊंचा हाथ खड़ा करो जरा. Okay, so I can say 50% audience right now had attended. And of course, I know this is a little summer break. People will be coming in gradually. Okay, so a very simple question to all of you. सिर्फ आपको एक वर्ड में आंसर देना है. What things have been discussed in Bhagavad Gita until now? One word answer. And that could be yoga. The subject matter of yoga has been discussed. Just give me one word. One word. What has been discussed in Bhagavad Gita so far? What have you heard so far? What have you learned so far? One word answer. Quickly. This has to be rapid fire round. Huh? Devotee. Good. We heard about yoga. We heard about devotees. What else? Quick, quick, quick. Raise your hand so I know from where this announced sound is coming. Bhakti. Bhakti. All right. What else? What have you heard in Bhagavad Gita? Bhakti. Huh? Surrender. Surrender तो भी आएगा. आखिरी अध्याय का विषय है, अभी नहीं हुआ. आप एडवांस में बात कर रहे हैं. No problem. That's a goal. Okay. What else Bhagavad Gita has spoken? Huh? Duty. Good. Discipline. Okay. 6th chapter Bhagavad Gita. Yes. Acceptance. Acceptance of what? What words comes to your mind which speaks about acceptance? Think about it. Come back. Acceptance. What else? What else? Yes. Okay. Soul. Concept of soul has been discussed. Concept of duty has been discussed. Concept of yoga, bhakti. Concept of karma. No, karma is different. Duty is different. Karma has been discussed. 3 types of karma. Karma, karma, vikarma. What else have been discussed? Death has been discussed. Okay. What? Opulences of Krishna have been discussed. अरे सब कुछ बोला, सबसे पहले कृष्णा बोलना था ना. तुम लोग सब यहाँ आजू बाजू दौड़ रहे. तो मेन सब्जेक्ट मैटर है गीता का, वो नहीं बोला गया. कृष्णा विच मीन्स भगवान. भगवान के बारे में बात की गई. ओके. व्हाट एल्स? व्हाट एल्स? व्हाट आर द सब्जेक्ट मैटर हैव बीन डिस्कस्ड सो फार? क्विक. देवता. ओके. देवता के बारे में बात की गई है. भगवान के बारे में बात करी गई है. कृष्ण कौन है उनके बारे में बात करी गई है. हाँ, डिवोटी. दैट वाज द फर्स्ट आंसर. दैट हैज बीन कवर्ड. यस. Mind. So much we discussed about. So much so that I created a whole course on mind. Mind management. Last year we did it in the beginning of the year. Whole mind management series. Okay, what else? Mind has been discussed. Soul has been discussed. What else? Crisis management have been discussed. Yes. Devotion, bhakti, one same thing has been addressed. What else have been discussed? Raise your hand. विश्व रूप भगवान के बारे में बात हुई. और कुछ और कुछ और कुछ. महात्माज, नॉट गांधी वाले. यस. हाँ. बैटल. ओके. युद्ध की बात हुई है. और कुछ. जीवात्मा, सोल के बारे में बात हो चुकी है. यस. धर्म. ओके. वेरी नाइस. धर्म. धर्म क्षेत्र कुरुक्षेत्र. गीता की शुरुआत वहाँ से होती है. एक्चुअली देयर मैनी मैनी मोर सब्जेक्ट मैटर्स. इफ यू पुट अ थॉट एटलीस्ट. अब इट्स अ गुड बिगिनिंग, क्योंकि अब आप थोड़ा गीता कॉन्शियस हो गए हैं. मैं आपको बोलता रहता तो आप अपनी दुनिया में खोए रहते. अभी आपको थोड़ी चेतना बढ़ी कि हमें जानने की आवश्यकता है. ऑल राइट. सो लेट्स बिगिन विद अवर डिस्कशन. सो 3 segments in Bhagavad Gita, as I said, 1 to 6, 7 to 12, and 13 to 18. So question comes, Karma Yoga has been discussed, Bhakti Yoga has been discussed. If the goal of Bhagavad Gita is Bhakti, after Bhakti Yoga, why discuss about Jnana Yoga? What's the need for Jnana Yoga? The need for Jnana Yoga is very simple. Jnana, there are 2 kinds of Jnana, knowledge. Apara and Para. Para means transcendental. Apara, which means mundane. Vedic knowledge of Vedas means which gives you complete knowledge about Para and Apara. Before Britishers abolished Vedic Gurukul system or education system around 1882, when they passed a law, anyone graduating from a Vedic Pathshala or Gurukul would not get a job, because by that time they had established industries in India also, so everything was controlled by the Britishers. There was no more independence. People could not grow their own agriculture. They couldn't cultivate their own agricultural land. They couldn't grow their own cotton or cultivate cotton, make clothes, etc. Everything was turned into industry. So they abolished that, and because of which this whole education system was abolished. Unfortunately, now we call it as mythology. But my dear friends, your ancestors, your great-grandparents, every one of them studied Vedic knowledge, and they were far much more happy and lived sustainable as we today. Anyways, so Jnana means para and apara. Here, Jnana Yoga section is discussing about how, to practice bhakti requires Shraddha. Shraddha comes from knowledge. So here we have a discussion about to how to understand this material creation. Or the objective of Jnana Yoga is to understand the purpose of material creation. So then we can have a right goal, right mindset, and we can aspire and take to the practice of Bhakti Yoga. That's how the subject matter begins. If Bhakti is ultimate, then why Jnana? So that's the whole idea. We'll take a look at it. So there are many subject matters. By the way, once again, how many of you have come for the first time? Raise your hand quickly. So this is the most difficult chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Congratulations. So अभी तुम्हें समझ नहीं आता, आप भगवान को धन्यवाद देना. इसमें मैं कुछ नहीं कर सकता. So Bhagavad Gita has 18 chapters, and that the most complicated subject matter of Bhagavad Gita is the 13th chapter. There are 6 questions which are asked in the 13th chapter by Arjuna, and these are the fundamental constituents of complete Vedic knowledge. The 6 questions which Arjuna asked: Purusha, Prakriti, Kshetra, Gyan, and Jnanam and Gneyam. And this is what are the fundamental blocks of Vedic knowledge. 13th chapter is something which gives us the summary and gist of complete Vedic scriptures or Vedic knowledge through this particular chapter. We'll try to make it simple. So we're going to discuss the 6 questions and the 6 concepts. What are the 6 concepts? First, who is the enjoyer? That is Purusha. Why do bad things happen to good people? How many of you have ever wondered like this? Raise your hands. मेरे संग बुरा क्यों होता है? हाथ खड़ा करो. आज के बाद नहीं पूछोगे. All right. Third, where is my freedom? That's the third thing we're going to talk about. How many of you have wondered? हम स्वतंत्र देश के निवासी हैं. टैक्स हर साल बढ़ता जा रहा है. टोल टैक्स कभी खत्म नहीं होता. वाटर टैक्स देने के बाद भी पानी आता नहीं. How many of you thought like this? ये क्या स्वतंत्र जीवन है? So you'll get an answer today. All right, if you ponder like that. 3 doers, a concept. We'll discuss that. The 5th subject matter. What is the purpose of material creation? Make a guess. All of you are probably minimum at least engineers here, right? 100% engineers. Now you finished engineering. But do you know what is the purpose of this creation? Is there a very fundamental question to be asked? Is there a purpose for everything? Yes or no? Yes or no? अरे यार जिस दुनिया में रह रहे हो तुम्हें उसी के बारे में नहीं पता, बाकी सब पता है. ये कोई मतलब नहीं बना ना. So can anyone make a guess here? What do you think? What is the purpose of this whole creation? Okay, to satisfy my needs. All right. What else? अरे वाह, क्या बात है. इतने साल क्यों लगाए फिर आने में? अगर गोल मटेरियल का स्पिरिचुअल नॉलेज थी तो इतने सालों के बाद क्यों आया आप? और वो पहले आ जाना चाहिए था. Okay, good. Let's hear from somebody who's new. Good answer. What else? Huh? Arey wow, to get some learnings. Yes, it's a correct answer actually. And the world is designed for that purpose. Very nice, we'll come to that. Thank you for that. Good thought process. Anything else? किसको लगता है, कितनों को लगता है, सच सच बोलना. बात अलग है, मुझसे आपने पहले भी आंसर सुना होगा, फिर भी आपको लगता है दुनिया तो मेरे एंजॉयमेंट के लिए बनी है भाई. हाथ खड़ा करो, कॉन्फिडेंटली हाथ करो जितने को लगता है दुनिया मेरे एंजॉयमेंट के लिए बनी है. रेज योर हैंड, हाउ मेनी ऑफ यू थिंक लाइक दिस. ये ऐसे जब सभा में आते हैं ना तो सबका परिवर्तन हो जाता है. क्लास के बाद आप सभी ये बोलने वाले दुनिया मेरे एंजॉयमेंट के लिए बनी है, पर क्लास में सुनते ही परिवर्तन हो गया. दिस इज रॉन्ग, दिस इज चीटिंग. So 100% you agree. Okay. If it is not about you, how many of you think your friends and people outside think this world is for enjoyment? Now you tell me, how many of you think except for you, everyone else thinks this world is for enjoyment? Raise your hand. अभी तक 100% हो गया. Okay, we'll talk about it short while. And this is a bonanza, additional subject matter we'll talk about, vision of transcendentalists. So for every chapter of Bhagavad Gita, to make it simple and help you understand this, we often give an acronym. If you have your copy of Bhagavad Gita, make a note of it. It will help you to understand how the verses have been placed out. So just an FYI, for those of you who come for the first time, it's a conversation. It is not a monologue. It's a dialogue. It's a conversation where Arjuna asks a question, Krishna answers. And Krishna says, are you satisfied? Arjuna says, I have another question. So when you have question answers, there is a flow of thoughts. It doesn't happen randomly. So like that, there's a flow of thoughts across all the 700 verses. And if you can go along with the flow of thoughts of Arjuna, then you can understand what Krishna is trying to tell us. Therefore, we kind of break these chapters and in segments to help us make it easy. So the acronym for this chapter is WISE. I'll not spend time on it. I will begin directly with the first segment, the first section of this chapter. W represent WISE questions, verse number 1 to verse number 7. Effectively, there are 6 questions which are asked. So once again, just for those all of you come here, I'll be quoting some verses, and I would request all of you wholeheartedly participate. That keeps you active, that keeps your intelligence sharp, and plus these are the words spoken by Krishna and Arjuna. Particularly, I'll be quoting verses spoken by Krishna. Just repeating those verses spoken by Krishna really, really energizes our mind and intelligence. All right? Arjuna Vacha. Loudly. Prakritim Purusham Chaiva. Kshetram Kshetragnyam Evacha. Etad Veditum Ichhami. Jnanam Niyam Chakeshava. O killer of the Keshi demon. Keshi demon represents doubt. It's beautiful if you look at it. We go by Sanskrit. Arjuna says, O Keshava, a killer of Keshi demon, which means the one who destroys the doubts. There are doubts in my heart, and you are Keshava, and I know you can dispel the doubt. Isn't that an interesting way to address it? O Keshava, etad veditum ichhami. If you so desire, please answer my doubts. Now, would you feel inspired to give an answer to such an individual? A lot of things we can learn, just how to have a dialogue. Arjuna is saying, O Keshava, you can destroy all the doubts. Ichhami, if you so desire, I'll put forward my questions to you. Please answer those questions. And what are the questions? Prakriti, Purusha, Kshetra, Kshetragyan, Jnanam, Gniyam. I would like to know about the 6 subject matters. That's it. All right. What it is, this is summary. You all would have access to all the PowerPoints, videos. You can see that later on. I'll begin with the discussion directly. So, what is Kshetra and Kshetragya? These are, out of the 6 questions, these are the first 2 questions which Arjuna asked. Kshetra and Kshetragya. Kshetra तो आप जानते हैं, Kshetra means जमीन. Kshetragya का क्या मतलब हुआ? The one who knows about the Kshetra is Kshetragya. Do you think Arjuna on the battlefield are asking who is Kshetra and Kshetragya? This has a more deeper meaning. The beauty of Sanskrit, it has meanings at multiple levels. So at a very for example, even English, although it's a very broken and superficial language, very limited vocabulary, yet if you go and look for a meaning of a word in English, you'll find many synonyms. And at times you'll find certain words whose synonyms are way different than the actual meaning. You've seen that, if in case you study language. So here Kshetra, yes, refers to a land, but here Arjuna is not asking that superficial meaning. Kshetra refers to the field where you perform action. So Arjuna is asking, Kshetra means, for us, where do we perform action? On the body. Through the body we perform action. So what is this body? And who is the knower of the body? Kshetra, Kshetragya. Is that making sense? We'll explain that more. Kshetra refers to the body. Kshetragya, knower of the body. Now Krishna says, Arjuna, there is not one knower of the body. There are 2 knowers of the body. Who? One is you, Atma, which has been discussed already before in the 2nd chapter. You know the body but spirit soul. One is the Atma, and second is Paramatma. Is there anyone who has not heard the word Paramatma? Paramatma means super soul, who resides in the heart of every living entity, regardless of you are a human, bird, reptile, animal, dog, horse, whatever you are, even a plant. Paramatma is there with every living entity. So Krishna says, Arjuna, there are 2 knowers, not one. One is you, who knows about the body, and there is one, what is called as Paramatma. All right. And there is Jnana. I'll come to Jnana in a short while. Now let me help you understand the difference between Atma and Paramatma. So, Kshetra means a land. A farmer sows a seed. Similarly, we perform an action through this body. That's a Kshetra, which produce phal, karma phal like this. So the farmer knows about his field. So he is a Kshetragya. But if you go back into the older system, The land was given by, all the land belonged to the king. And the king will give the land. So you may have a property, you may have your land. You may know only about your land, but the king would have information about all the land. So from that perspective, for your kshetra, how many kshetra are there? Two. One is you acting as a landowner, and second is the king because he knows about all the land. In that way, there are two owners, there are two knowers of this body. One is you and one is Paramatma. What is the difference between you and Paramatma? You only know about this land, whereas Paramatma knows about everyone. That's the difference. Therefore, Paramatma or Krishna is said to be omnipresent. He is always present. That's the point here. And then after this, in this discussion, Kshetra has been discussed at length. This is called as Sankhya. It's a fantastic subject matter. Krishna doesn't discuss much in detail. There are a few things which we're going to discuss today, which I feel, which I believe you all would agree should be compulsory made part of our education system. Our thinking would entirely change. So here, Kshetra has been described, the body. So Krishna says this whole creation that we look around is made up of how many elements? 24 fundamental elements. Let's begin to count these 24 fundamental elements. And let's try to understand that. Would you agree? Let's look at the structure. Would you agree this structure has 5 fundamental elements? Let's begin with that. It has earth, water, fire, air, ether. It is not only about that structure. Even in this structure, we have 5 elements. Agreed? Think deeply. If this structure is made up of 5 elements, if this structure is made of 5 elements, what is the difference between this structure and this structure then? The difference is this is non-living and this is living. If it is non-living and this structure is living, it's living because of whom? Because of the presence of the soul. That's all. So simple. What's the complexity to understand? We are not the body, we are not the structure, but the soul. So earth, water, fire, ether, these are the 5 building blocks of this creation by which everything has been created. So those are the 5 things. Earth, water, fire, these are called gross elements. After that comes knowledge acquiring senses and working senses. 5 knowledge, 5 working senses. What are the knowledge acquiring senses? You don't have to look it there. Pay attention here. Understand it, then go and look on the screen. So what are the 5 knowledge acquiring senses? Knowledge acquiring senses means by which we understand the things that are happening around. So how many of you agree eyes is one knowledge acquiring senses? Ears, nose, tongue and sense of touch. Yes? By this 5 senses we understand what's happening around. Agreed? These are called your 5 knowledge acquiring senses. Very simple. Then there are 5 working senses by which you perform action. Don't look at the screen. Think about what could be the working senses by which you perform action. One is the tongue. You speak, that's an action. Second with the hands. Third with the legs. These all are used in performing action. And then rectum and genitals. Procreation and discharge of a waste. Yes? These are 5 working senses. Simple. So we have come to 15 fundamental elements. Then there are 5 sense objects. When you talk about 5 knowledge acquiring senses, for every knowledge acquiring senses there is a sense object. For eye, what would be the sense object? Eye sees, would only see if there is a form. So what is the sense object for the eyes? Form. Now the nose smells. It can only smell if the object is of smell. It should have some fragrance, odor or whatnot. So there are 5 sense objects. Form, you can hear what? Sound, smell, taste and touch. Then only your knowledge acquiring senses can function. You don't see through your tongue, you taste. So that sense object has to be there. This makes it 20. Is that okay? Is this common to Hindu, Muslim, Sikh, Isai? Yes or no? Why have we made so much divisions then? Nonsense. Ridiculous. Where is the difference? Same. When Bhagavad Gita was spoken, there was no discussion on Hindu, Islam, Christianity. It didn't exist. And many of these things are just recent past. Anyways, 20. We saw 24 elements. And this is across the Vedic knowledge, everything talks about same thing, 24 elements. What are the 4 elements? Mind, all of us have. Intelligence and false ego. Krishna says, Bhumir, Apo, Nalo, Vayu, Kham, Mano, Buddhir, Ahankar. Like this, 3 subtle elements. Mind, intelligence, false ego makes 23 elements. Alright? What is the 24th element? That 24th element sometimes is addressed as Kala Chakra, sometimes is addressed as Pradhan, or sometimes it is addressed as Atma. And these are the things which make this whole creation as what it is available today. Now question is, if there are these 24 building blocks because of which this whole creation exists, let me ask a simple question. If a food is served to you on a plate, if I ask you, ये खाना कहाँ से आया है? आप बोलेंगे माँ ने बनाया, kitchen से आया है. I say, all right, go deeper. Where did mother got the food? You say, well, she got it from the vegetable vendor or the D-Mart. Then I'll ask you further, go deeper. Where did the vegetable vendor or the D-Mart got it? You say, from the agricultural land, from the farmer. I'll say, go deeper. Where did the farmer got it? Then you say, well, he grew it by sowing a seed. Then I'll ask you, from where did he got the seeds? I have spoken enough, now you answer. From where has he got the seeds? What do you think? Bhagwan would be a by default answer right now. But let's think about it. What do you think? Where has he got the seeds from? Nature, Prakriti? Where has he got the seed from? So if you think everything has a cause, everything has a cause. Unfortunately, we get so much caught up with immediate cause. They say food security is challenged. Oh, तो हमें लगता है वो कल से वो vegetable वाला आना खाना लाना बंद कर देगा vegetable. We don't worry about, we don't think even. It all depends on agricultural land. And even agricultural land depends on the seed. And it doesn't only depend on seed, it also depends on water. It only doesn't depend on water. Would you eat anything which is tasteless? This is a mango season going on. Would you eat a mango if it doesn't have that sweet taste? From where does the mango get a sweet taste? All of you scientists, engineers, younger brother of scientists, what do you think? From where does a mango get a taste, sweetness? Krishna answers in Bhagavad Gita, 15th chapter, verse number 13 and 14. He says, I am the moon, moonlight. It's a moonlight that gives taste to the vegetables and the fruits. The fragrance of the flower, it all comes. All of you have studied about photosynthesis. So we know at least the influence of sunlight. But scientists have not yet discovered how the moonlight gives rasa or taste or life to the fruits and vegetables. Imagine if the vegetable that you eat is tasteless. How many of you have drank water which doesn't have taste? आप कितना ही पी लो, प्यास बिल्कुल नहीं बुझती. We have experience. Even water has a taste. From where does it come? So that all source is Krishna. So where these 24 elements have come? We see the manufacture, we see the transformation of that. But where does this 24 elements come? So Krishna answers in Bhagavad Gita, it is I. I am the one who creates it. There has to be someone. Anyways, this is Kshetrajna. I hope that answers that. Then Arjuna thought about it. He said, my dear Lord, how do I cultivate knowledge about this Kshetra and Kshetrajna? How do I actually understand? What is the means of understanding this? And then Krishna begins to talk about the process of knowledge, which is Jnanam. Jnanam is not knowledge. Jnanam is the process of knowledge. Niyam is the goal or the object of knowledge. So let's talk about knowledge. So in Bhagavad Gita 13th chapter verses 8 to verses 12, Krishna speaks about the process of knowledge. Okay. Yes, process of knowledge. So let's have a question. What is knowledge according to you? I've given 4 options here. How many of you agree knowledge means gaining information? Raise your hand. पहले सारे options तो देख लो भाई. फिर बाद में बोलोगे आंसर बदल रहा हूँ मैं. All right. Okay. Memorization. Are you sure? पास नहीं होंगे एग्जाम में अगर मेमोराइज नहीं करा तो. Good character and practical behavior. And the 4th, all of the above. So, how many of you, now let me give you an option. What is knowledge? How many of you say first, gaining information is knowledge? Anyone? Any bias or takers for first? Okay, gaining information is knowledge. One hand. Second, memorization. How many think knowledge means memorization? Okay, nobody. एक हाथ उठाओ यार थोड़ा चारों का हाथ उठाओगे. Third, good character and practical behavior. How many of you think knowledge means good character and practical behavior? Oh, which means everyone is saying fourth, all of the above. So let me ask, D, all of the above. Well, Krishna does not agree with that. And I'll prove it to you in a short while. Krishna says knowledge means good character, good conduct, and practical behavior. That is the whole objective of knowledge. Imagine if you have learned the art of making money, but you have not learned the art of living with each other. Would you be happy with making money? I'll repeat again. Imagine you have learned the art of making money, but you have not learned the art of living with each other. What will you do with the money? You can't do anything. So practical behavior. I'll come to it in a short while. So what is knowledge? Knowledge is not only about information and memorization, but rather about exemplary personal behavior and practical personal character and practical behavior. Let me give you a real-time example. How many of you know about the Second World War? Raise your hand quickly. You heard about something, Second World War? You know about Hitler's, Nazis, SS camp, etc.? All right. So those of you know this history, long story short, so Nazis or the Hitler had created a kind of radicalization in Germany where he said non-Germans, or I mean Jews who are not native of Germany are the biggest challenge for our survival and growth. And he created a kind of radicalization against Jews, and the goal was to kill all the Jews. And Jews and the Germans, they were staying next to each other all this while, but suddenly because of Hitler's propaganda, they became enemy. So much so, one survivor of the Hitler's concentration camps in 1954 wrote a letter. You can go and search it out. And the letter was role of education in the society. And he writes, I'm paraphrasing, he says, what have we made out of an education today? Where education has brought us today? And then he explains. He said, me and many of us, like me, were tortured. We became a living subject of experimentation by the doctors. So what Hitler and his army was doing, they were performing live experiments on the living individual to see how surgery has to be performed, even without giving anesthesia. Without giving anesthesia, they'll cut open the belly of a Jew and they will operate just to see the treatment that they're trying to discover, how it functions. Can you just imagine? People were butchered like this. And he was one of the survivors. He said, I, along with many, were tortured by the educated class of society known as doctors, who, without giving anesthesia, were experimenting their medical practices on us. I, fortunately, am the survivor to tell my story. Many of us, like me, died on the operation table, screaming all through with the excruciating pain. Is this the goal of education, to create a doctors who do not have even this much sanity? Your role is to protect life, not to destroy life. So what education has become of? So like this, that individual wrote a letter and he raised a question. And it's a very valid question, because if you see from the perspective of Bhagavad Gita, the Bhagavad Gita outlook towards knowledge is entirely different. Not Bhagavad Gita. In fact, Vedic education system does not pay much attention on what you have learned or how much you know of it. If you don't have a good character and conduct, your knowledge is entirely futile. In fact, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, one who renders devotional service unto me, which means one who has a good conduct, approaches me, I give him the intelligence by which he can make progress further. Tesham satata yuktana bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam. Dadami buddhi yogam. I give him the intelligence by which he can make progress. So, education to compare our current education style with what Bhagavad Gita speaks about, there are two things: caliber versus character. In today's education system, success in academic world depends entirely on your caliber, not character. Spiritual subject matter, however, have very less to do with caliber. They have a lot to do with character. Does anyone know why did Krishna chose Arjuna as a recipient of Bhagavad Gita? Did any time Krishna said, Arjuna, because you're the best bowman in the world, because you're the best warrior in the world, therefore I have chosen you? Because you are the most intelligent student of Dronacharya, who could learn just when Dronacharya will teach you once, because of that I have chosen you. Does anyone remember what Krishna said? Why, Arjuna, you have become the recipient of this knowledge? It had nothing to do with caliber. It had only to do with character. And Krishna said, Arjuna, because you are non-envious. You are non-envious. Therefore, you become the rightful recipient of this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. So like this I was saying, 10.10 Krishna says, those who serve me with sincerity, I give them the knowledge by which they can come back to me and understand how to make progress in this world. I'll tell you one real-time story. This happened in one of the counties in Russia. If you know how Russia is placed out, it has many counties, or you can say neighborhood, where there's a lot of Muslim-dominated areas. So we have our book distribution team, which goes out distributing copies of Bhagavad Gita in different areas. So a bus party ended up in particular county or neighborhood, which was entirely Muslim-dominated. And if you understand their culture is so, they're very closely knit and they don't interact with the outside world. They don't interact particularly with any other religion. So this devotees, 4 monks, went to this particular town and they were standing there, whole day they were standing there. And they write later on, they said, we were standing there whole day, people passed comments as us, people ignored us, people pushed us, and we were wondering why Krishna has brought us to this town. It is so hopeless and painful. Not even a single individual is paying attention to us. We're trying to talk to them about the importance of message of Bhagavad Gita. Nobody's paying attention. Everyone has gone back to the bus. One devotee was standing. He said, well, let me just make one final attempt. He was standing on the corner of the road. Across the lane, there were 3-4 ladies in burqa. They were standing there across the lane. And they were standing there for quite a good time. And they were looking at this guy and they were talking to each other among themselves. So he was wondering, God knows, maybe they will come or not come. Like this, 45 minutes and more passed by. And none of those ladies came here. Then finally thought nothing is working out. He decided to wind up and walk back to the bus. The moment he turned around and he started winding up his table and packed his table, about to move, he heard a sound from behind. Wait a second, sir. And he turned around and there was one of the burqa-clad women. He said, I have something to ask you. The man said, okay, yes, mother, how can I help you? She said, do you have a book titled as Song of God? Bhagavad Gita in English is translated as Song of God. Bhagavad Gita, Gita, Giyate is song. Is it? And Bhagavad, which means spoken by, sung by God. So Bhagavad Gita is Song of God. So she asked, do you have a book? This is in Russian language, I'm translating in English. Do you have a book by the name of Song of God? And he was surprised. He said, how does she know? He immediately took out a copy of Bhagavad Gita. He said, are you talking about this? She said, yes. And he said, the moment she touched the book, she had tears rolling down her cheeks and she began to cry. Now can you imagine, you have a burqa-clad woman holding a copy of Bhagavad Gita and crying? If you watch news stories, so you know what happens around. This monk was frightened. Are ye kyo ro rahi hai ye book lekar? I didn't do anything. And then she said, can I tell you one thing? He said, yes. He was also curious to ask, how come she got to know of this book and all that? Before she can tell, I forgot. Before she can tell, he said, you can give any donation you would like to give. And this lady had a pouch with coins. And she said, this is my life savings. I'm very poor. This is all I have. And I give it to you. And there were some loose coins like this. He got those loose coins and he asked, ma'am, can I know why are you so inspired to take this book? And I see you have tears rolling down your eyes. What's the reason behind it? And we didn't interact it. We came for the first time. How do you know the title of this book? And holding this book, you seems to be having, goosebumps. Why are you undergoing this experience? And this is something which gives me a goosebump when I heard from him. He said, she responded to this query and she said, last night, Allah came to her dream. And he told me, tomorrow afternoon, there would be a man in such a such kind of an attire. He would come and he will be holding a book called a Song of God. That will teach you how to love me. When you see him, grab that copy from him. And I was thinking, I was like, why yaar? Allah bhi book distribution kar rahe hai? Isn't that? He came, and when I heard that, I reminded this beautiful shloka from Bhagavad Gita, which I quoted before. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam. Satata, always, yuktanam, engaged. Bhajatam, in what? In rendering devotional service. How? Priti, with affection. Priti purvakam. One who is engaged always in rendering devotional service unto me with affection. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam. Dadami, I give them the intelligence by which they can come back to me. And she was a devout Muslim. And look how the journey ended up here. I can tell you hundreds of examples like this from all over the world. How Krishna helps in different ways. Anyways, we'll move forward. Let me tell you one last. I quoted one example from the Islamic State. Let me tell you something from the Christian county. So this is in Europe now. So again, I have a group of devotees who are distributing books. They ended up into a neighborhood which was Orthodox Christians, largely. They are Orthodox Christians, a very close-knit community, and no acceptance of any other religious practice, nothing. So everyone there, they wear this big gown kind of a thing, the pastor and all that. So this group of devotees was standing whole day on the street and nobody was paying attention. Everyone was pushing and saying, why have you come here? We have our God Christ, we don't need anything. All that was going on. Finally, again, everyone was walking back to their bus, which was parked on the other side of the street on the corner. While they were going towards that, on the right hand side there was a church. The last man in that, who was coming at the end, he looked at the church and somehow he had that feeling, यार हमने सब जगह ट्राई करा, चर्च में ट्राई नहीं करा. We tried at the shops, we tried outside the homes, we tried at the marketplace. We didn't enter the church. Let me try a church. And he took the courage to enter a church. Any one of you had been to Europe here? Anyone? Have you been to European churches and counties there? I can tell you, they don't look less than a horror city. Isolated, and particularly weather in Europe is very dark and dull. It looks like daytime horror movie. And then you have a hundreds of year-old structure. And if you have grown up in an environment where you have watched Hollywood horror movies, church ko dekhte hi bhoot yaad aa jaya aapko. So this guy, born and brought up in Europe, he decided, let me go and try it out. He entered. Generally, the situation of the church is, it's not vibrant like temples, particularly ISKCON temple. You go any time of the day, there'll be kirtans, many people. Generally, they're empty except for the certain times of the day when they have prayer session. This was somewhere in the evening, not the late evening, not the afternoon. He entered, everything was pin drop silence, nobody was there. And he was like, my dear Lord, you have brought me here, Krishna, help me, at least find one soul who would be interested in your message. And he's constantly praying, intensely praying like this. And he tried looking, he could not find any jiva, any living entity. He came out of the church, and right outside the church, there was a passage going downwards. And it was written, President's office or some manager's office like this. And he could see some slipper there. So he understood there is somebody. He thought, let me try. He walked down the aisle, and it was becoming a little dark, and he reached a door, and he flung open the door. And there, across the table, was sitting the pastor. The senior most monk of that church was sitting there. At the moment he flung the door, the monk got frightened. He was reading something. Immediately he wrapped it and hid it underneath the table. And he stood up. And you have a Christian monk, elderly monk, and you have our ISKCON monk, face to face. And this monk enters there, he introduces himself, from where has he come. And this monk, Christian monk, is meeting Hare Krishna monk for the first time. And they both settle down. And this monk asked, "Sir, did I disturb you? You look frightened when I entered, and you quickly wrapped up something and kept aside. Did I disturb you? If you wish, I can leave." He said, "No, no, no, that's all right. But I would like to know more about you." So this Christian monk asked about our devotee. And then he introduced about Srila Prabhupada, and he took out copy of Bhagavad Gita. He spoke about Bhagavad Gita, and he showed him the photo of Prabhupada. The moment this senior most monk of this church saw the photo of Prabhupada, he began to cry. He began to cry. Can you imagine? You're sitting in an underground cellar, dark, and you have this Christian monk with a black attire. You know, they have this kind of a dress, and elderly with a big white beard, and his tears are rolling down his beard and dropping on the table. What would you think of? Arey, इसने क्या कह दिया? And now this monk said, "Sir, you were asking me why I got frightened and what did I wrap when you came?" He took out a book underneath the table, kept on the table. He unwrapped it. And you will not imagine, this is second goosebump event. You will not imagine what was there wrapped in. It was a second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Not even the first canto, second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. And this devotee was shocked. He said, "What?" the Christian monk, the senior most monk of that ashram, is reading second canto Srimad Bhagavatam. And then he asked him, "So where did you got this?" He said, "Long ago I was traveling outside our place only, and in a dustbin I saw this book. I had been very intently praying to Jesus that I need some help. I need to know more about you. Please help me. Please guide me." And the very next day, when I was walking back to the church, I saw this beautiful book. And when I saw this book, I felt some inspiration. I picked it up. And this devotee asked, "How long ago was the incident?" He said, 15 years ago. This guy was a monk in the church for last 57 or 60 years. 15 years ago, he got that book. And then he asked, "Have you ever read anything else?" He said, "I have not read any other book by this author. From last 15 years, every day without a break, I read the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. And just by reading it, I have developed such an understanding, such a love, such an affection." And then he opened the drawer. He had made a chanting beads. Every day, along with chanting the name of Jesus Christ, as they have their mantra, he would chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And the story doesn't end here. Now this pastor is meeting with ISKCON devotee for the first time in his life. Nobody before ever had come to this particular county, I don't remember the name of the country, in this place for the first time. Nobody has ever come. Therefore, he didn't know anything about Hare Krishna or ISKCON like this or about Prabhupada. He only had this copy of book. This pastor, this monk, went on to become the biggest buyer. Whatever Prabhupada book this monk had, our monk, he purchased everything. He purchased complete Bhagavatam. He purchased Bhagavad Gita. He purchased small books. He purchased Chaitanya Charitamrita also. So what you could have done in a whole day, just in one meeting with one individual happened. And I can tell you there are hundreds of examples of devotees who travel around in different places they come across. When we travel around in the state of Maharashtra and India, we come across so many instances. I can tell you my own personal experience. You knock on the door and they look at you. "I had been waiting for you." So many times I've heard like this. So many times people say, "Just yesterday I was praying to the Lord, my dear Lord, please get me a copy of Bhagavad Gita." So many times happens. So when Krishna says, "Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam apyantite." Yes. And that's the subject matter here. It's not about caliber. Education, knowledge is all about building character. When we have that, then Krishna empowers, God empowers us to know more about it. So, who can understand Bhagavad Gita? The real method of acquiring spiritual knowledge is cultivation of divine qualities, of which humility is foremost. Therefore, 13th chapter verses 8 to 12, which is called as process of knowledge, it begins with amanitvam, amaditvam, which begins with humility and pridelessness. Because if you want to acquire knowledge, you have to accept a teacher. And if you have to accept a teacher, you have to accept yourself as a fool. If you don't accept yourself as a fool, can you accept anyone as a teacher? So one who thinks he knows everything accepts a fool as a disciple. One who accepts himself as a fool, then he accepts somebody as a teacher. And always you would have seen the trees which are laden with fruits are always bent low. Have you seen the mango trees? Before the mango season and after the mango season? Before the mango season, they're standing erect tall. The moment the trees have mangoes, all the trees bend down. The one who actually has the fruit of knowledge will always be bent, will always be humble. And Krishna repeats about this again and again. You cannot have knowledge. You cannot be proud if you have knowledge, or you cannot have knowledge if you're proud. It just doesn't work, because that is not the outcome of knowledge. And when we commit to spiritual lifestyle, and the beauty here is, how do we cultivate these qualities of humility, pridelessness, etc.? The beauty, Krishna says, you don't have to endeavor for it. You need to endeavor towards spiritual lifestyle. When you endeavor towards spiritual lifestyle, then all these qualities will automatically come. That's what Krishna says. When we commit to spiritual lifestyle, then we simultaneously develop divine qualities. And what are the fundamental thing of spiritual lifestyle is, every day connecting ourselves with the Supreme Lord by chanting everyone. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. By practicing chanting this Mahamantra on everyday basis, we connect with the Lord, and that is the beginning of a spiritual lifestyle. And that's how we cultivate. So 13.8 to 12, I'm not going to go into the details of it. There are things mentioned which you can take a look at it. It's humility, pridelessness, non-violence, tolerance, simplicity, etc., which are mentioned. So these are the process of acquiring knowledge. If you don't have that, there's no question of knowledge that we will have knowledge. So like this, there are 20 items which are mentioned. It will take detailed discussion, so this is a homework for you to read. Now, after talking about three things, Kshetra, Gyan, Jnanam, the process of knowledge, the fourth subject matter is, what is the objective? What is the goal of knowledge? What is the end result? The end result is to understand the difference between Atma and Paramatma. So look at the characteristics of Atma and Paramatma to help us understand. What are the characteristics of soul? So Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, na jayate mriyate va kadachin nayam bhutva bhavitva na bhuya jo nitya shashvato yam purano na hanyate anyamane sharire. The soul is beginningless. There is no birth and death for you and I. It's only our experience where we think we have died. It's a body which takes birth. It's a body that dies, but not the soul. So the features of the soul is anadi, beginningless, mat param. But the soul is not independent. Soul is my energy. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 7, chapter verse number 5, aparayamitastu anyam, prakriti vidhime param. Arjuna, know that there is another energy of mine, jiva bhutam. Yayedam dharate jagat, वह जीव जो इस जगत को exploit करने का प्रयत्न कर रहा है, that jivatma is also my energy. Bhagavad Gita 7, chapter 5th verse. And is beyond the material cause and effect, which means Krishna says beyond material cause and effect. This is not our house. This is not our world. We don't belong here. Just like you bring a fish out of the water, you keep it in a 5-star hotel where you may feel very comfortable. If it is out of the water, can that fish, you may decorate the fish with all the expensive diamonds and gold, with the most exquisite silk and fabric. Can that fish can ever be happy? That is not its place. The place of the fish is the water. Similarly, Krishna is saying, beyond material cause and effect, you don't belong to this material world. Our situation in this world is like of a fish out of the water. How many of you agree? Somehow we are always in anxiety. Please raise your hand. How many of you agree? Somehow we are always in fear. Raise your hand, please. Life insurance, health insurance, job security, food security, whatnot. Yes or no? What's the difference between your situation and the fish out of the water? Fish is also always in fear when it's out of the water. So Krishna says, this is not your situation, you're in a wrong place. And one who knows this, understands the nature of the soul, what are the benefits, then you become blissful. We may be out of the water right now, but now I know where I belong to. Now I'll start making an attempt to go back to that place, knowing that we become blissful. That's about Atma. What are the features of Paramatma? Omnipotent, which means he knows about everything. He's all powerful like that. He accepts our offering. One of the qualities of omnipotent is, although he will be situated in the spiritual world, yet he appears in this world in a deity form, which is also made up of matter. But because he accepts that form, when we offer him, he accepts our offering. There are hundreds of examples even today when devotee offers, just to fulfill the desire of the devotee, Lord physically would eat. And let me give you one example. There was a devotee by the name of Raghunandan Das. Narhari Saka was his father's name, if I am correct. The son name was Raghunandan. Father had to go out. They had a deity of Gopinathji at home. So father went out to another town. The mother asked the son Raghunandan, go and make an offering. Young boy didn't knew. He said, okay. And he asked mother, how do I make an offering? And so mother said, well, how I serve you, you serve the Lord. So how mother serve? Mother will feed the child and say, child, eat more, eat more. He went to the Lord, put the plate to the Lord and kaha. And then he said to the Lord, khao. Gopinath is looking at him, smiling, standing in his form. And Raghunandan is saying, khao. Maa ne bola, khalana hai tumhe. Khao tum. And Lord is standing. Lord is not doing anything. Raghunandan began to cry. Ek khana. Maa maregi. Prabhu khao. Mother will beat me. And when Krishna, Gopinath saw the simplicity, he walked down from the altar. He ate the whole plate. Raghunandan was so happy. I can go and play now. Mera kaam khatam ho gaya. He came back running to the mother. Maiya, Maiya, ho gaya. Maiya ne bola, kya ho gaya? Offering ho gayi. Maa ne kapda uthaya. Khana kahan gaya? Where is the prasadam? Maiya, you said feed Gopinath. I fed Gopinath. Maiya boli, this little boy has become such a rascal. I told him to go and offer. His father had been offering for so many years. That time Gopinath never ate. First time this boy went and offered, Gopinath ate whole thing. Mother became very upset. She said, let your father come, I'll tell your father. And Raghunandan said, what is this? Why you have become angry? Become angry at Gopinath. He ate. What is my problem? He went out to play. Father came back. And the mother told the father, the husband. She said, your son has become so naughty. I sent him with a plate of bhoga for the Lord. And God knows what he did. Maybe he ate by everything, or maybe he distributed to his friend and he's saying Krishna ate. Father knew Raghunandan is a very, very special and a sincere boy. He didn't believe the mother. He said, okay, prepare another plate. Call Raghunandan, come here. Raghunandan, go offer to Gopinath. Raghunandan said, nahi, main nahi karunga abhi. No worries, I'm telling you, don't be upset. Go and offer and feed as you fed Gopinath today, early in the day. Raghunandan said, all right. Then I can go and play. Father said, yes, if you feed Gopinath, you can go and play. Raghunandan was most interested in play. All right, no problem. He went. And this time, father went and hid behind the curtain. And he was looking. Raghunandan went, kept a plate, and he said, Gopinath, abhi lunch ka time, khao. Gopinath is not responding anything. Gopinath, khao, mujhe khelne jana hai, tum kha lo, warna maa bhi maregi, abhi to pitaji bhi aa gaye hai. Abhi dono marenge, khao. माँ ने मुझे बोला था आपको वैसे खिलाओ जाओ जैसे माँ मुझे खिलाती है तो मैं नहीं हटूंगा जब तक आप नहीं खाओगे खाओ. And when he pleaded like this and the Lord didn't respond, Raghunandan began to cry. Lord again walked down from his altar. He lifted up the laddu and he took a bite. Can you imagine? This is another goosebump event. The father of Raghunandan was seeing from behind the curtain. He literally fainted. He was holding the curtain and he collapsed on the ground. Everything along with him fell. And immediately Raghunandan was frightened. The Lord saw what happened. Lord went back to the altar and he stood there. Ye kya hua? Ye kaun aa gaya room mein? And then Raghunandan brought back the plate with a half-eaten laddu. And then Raghunandan's father, I believe Narhari Saka, when he came back to consciousness, then he told the mother. And then he declared, Raghunandan is not my son. Raghunandan is my guru. I am not his father, but he is my father. Because he has taught me what devotion to the Lord. There are hundreds and hundreds of examples. Every day when we offer in the temple, don't you think Lord accepts? Lord eats? But patram pushpam phalam toyam yome bhaktaya. Krishna says, in what condition I accept? If you offer with devotion, I will accept it. But in case of Krishna, his senses are such, he can do multiple or all things from any of the sense. By his eyes, he can eat. He doesn't have to eat like us because our senses are limited. Just by his glance, he can eat. Like that, he performs his function. That's omnipotent, like this. He hears to our prayers. I mean, think about what technology Draupadi used. There was not even 2G, 1G. When Draupadi raised her hands and called up. Now, that was an emergency SOS signal she sent. Because when she called Govinda Madhava Damodar Madhaveti Bachao, that was a last attempt. That was a last attempt, which means that was beyond 100G, not 5G. Which means the signal must have reached to Krishna so quickly. Krishna sitting in Dwarka. Within a snap of a finger, Krishna was there. And we have seen in Mahabharata, Krishna provided unlimited sari, and Dushasan fainted trying to unwrap Draupadi. Omnipotent, hears to our prayers, sees all our activities as Paramatma. Paramatma has two eyes, the sun and the moon. Sun in the daytime, moon in the nighttime. And Paramatma sitting within our heart observes every desire, every action. Nothing is hidden from the Lord. Like that, Lord is omnipotent. And He is all providing, just like example of sun, etc. like this. Then, what are the other qualities of super soul? He is transcendental. He is transcendental means when the war of Kurukshetra began, Krishna was 89 years old. So does Arjuna was. However, Krishna still looked 16-year-old boy. He doesn't grow beyond 16 years of age. He's always youthful. He was like that. There's a description comes when Krishna became angry at Bhishma Pitamaha because Bhishma Pitamaha has broken down the chariot of Arjuna and he was about to shoot arrow at Arjuna to kill him. Lord Shri Krishna jumped and picked up the wheel and he ran towards Bhishma Pitamaha. And the beautiful description of the form of the Lord comes. That time it is mentioned, the eyes of the Lord were so pleasing. जब हमें क्रोध आता है, सबसे पहले क्रोध कहाँ पे नजर आता है? आँखों में. Even before you begin to speak, just by eyes we can understand the person is angry. And when you're really angry, then we say red hot eyes. Arjuna eyes when he was killing soldiers or warriors with red hot eyes is described. Krishna eyes was always pleasing. Like a moonlight. Which means he doesn't get affected like we get affected by the emotions, by the modes of nature like that. He is always transcendental. Beyond sense perception, which means we cannot see him with our naked eyes. Is there anything that we cannot see with our eyes? Or we can always see? What is that we cannot see with our eyes? Yes. We cannot see air. What else we cannot see with our eyes? Beyond the range of our sight, what else we cannot see? Behind the wall, we cannot see in the dark. What else we cannot see? Vibrations, what else we cannot see? There are hundreds of things we cannot see. So we cannot see soul, etc., etc. Despite knowing we cannot see, yet people like us say, show me God, then I will believe. Even Duryodhana saw Krishna, he didn't believe. Even Dhritarashtra saw, even Kamsa saw, they knew about Krishna, they didn't believe. It's not about seeing Krishna. It's about knowing who Krishna is. Duryodhana just didn't want to understand who Krishna is. Although he knew who Krishna is. Krishna showed his Virat to Duryodhana also. But he didn't want it because he was envious. So beyond sense perception, to say that unless we see God, we cannot understand. Those who saw God could not understand what to speak about you. Duryodhana like that. Undivided, which means, Krishna says, Aham sarvasya prabho mata sarvam pravartate. Which means all this creation have come from me. If you have 100 rupees, if I take 90 rupees from you, how much are you left with? How much you are left with? Hari bol. यार मैथमेटिक्स इतना कॉम्प्लिकेटेड थोड़ा मैंने कुछ आपको ट्रिग्नोमेट्री पूछ ली है 100 में से 90 माइनस करेंगे तो कितना बचेगा हरे कृष्ण थैंक यू फॉर वेकिंग अप मे बी इंग्लिश में जल्दी जल्दी बोल गया तो समझ नहीं आया आई डोंट नो व्हाट हैपेंड सो इफ यू हैव 100 रुपीस आई टेक 90 यू लेफ्ट विद 10 दैट्स द लॉ ऑफ दिस वर्ल्ड बट कृष्णा emanates everything and he emanates complete units yet he remain all complete. That's spiritual mathematics. Scripture says like this. Will repeat after me. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate सुबह से प्रसादम नहीं खाया, फास्टिंग चल रही है, थोड़ा तो जोर से बोलो, ऐसा लग रहा है बहुत भूख लगी है। एक बार दोबारा अटेम्प्ट मारते हैं। ओम पूर्णम अध पूर्णम इदम। अभी बॉलीवुड गाना चला दो, स्पीकर से ज्यादा आवाज आती है, isn't it? पर संस्कृत श्लोकों में पता नहीं कहाँ आवाज मर जाती है। ऑल राइट, वंस मोर। ओम पूर्णम अध पूर्णम इदम पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। Om, the sound, it refers to the Supreme Lord. Purna adha purnamidam. He is all complete. And from this complete Purna, Purna idam means this. Purnat Purnam udachyate. Udachyate means manifest. Om is Purna, and from this Purna, Purna units manifest. Udachyate. Purnasya Purnamadaya. Although he is manifesting complete units, Purnam eva vashishyate, yet he remains Purna. This is spiritual mathematics. A complete units, which means this creation, this material world, which has everything for our sustenance, manifest from the complete Lord, yet he remains complete. This is beyond our logic and sense perception. This is spiritual dynamics and spiritual mathematics. This is a very famous invocation to Ishopanishad. All right. So, soul and super soul. Question comes, how can I understand this subject matter? First of all, I am Atma, and also about Paramatma. Any thoughts? How can you understand? Read Bhagavad Gita. How many of you think? Watch Sanskar TV. Here on YouTube channel, so many sadhus, Amma, Baba, बैठे हुए आजकल. How do you understand the subject matter? Well, scripture gives an answer. Very simple. Somehow or other, let's repeat this. This is something which we can memorize. Somehow or other, if one meets a saintly person and achieves his favor, then the entire mission of one's human life is fulfilled. I'll give you one or two examples. Again, hundreds and hundreds of examples can be given. There was a medical conference happening in New York City, and our devotees were there outside doing some book distribution. One Bhutanese or a native of Bhutan was there, which means they practice Buddhist philosophy there. So what you told him? Well, this is the message of Buddha. You know, Dashavatara says Buddha is none other than Krishna, Lord. So he said, this is message of Buddha. You are a follower of Buddha? He said, yes. Have you read Song of God, Bhagavad Gita, spoken by Buddha? He said, no, you should have it. He said, okay, I'll have it. He took it. So he wanted an English copy. Somehow, coincidentally, he ended up getting a Hindi copy. He was there for a medical conference. He was a very noted doctor. He came back to his place. He put the book in his clinic. And one day when he had a time, he took out a copy of Bhagavad Gita thinking that, let me see what Buddha taught. And to his surprise, it was in Hindi. He's like, oh, I don't understand Hindi, you know. English I could have read. And then he had a Gujarati living in Bhutan who knew Hindi. He handed a copy of Bhagavad Gita to this gentleman who was also a doctor. This is almost close to 15 years ago that story happened. And prior to that, none of us have ever gone to Bhutan. Bhutanese didn't know anything about Bhagavad Gita. There were no Krishna temple, nothing. Gujarati got a copy of Bhagavad Gita. He read it. His life transformed. And he went on to make many, many lives transformed. And there is flourishing Krishna consciousness in Bhutan. Began from where? One association in New York. And it was also not very conducive. He wanted English copy, he got a Hindi copy. Look at Srila Prabhupada's life of Acharya. He was a young guy, you know, who just got recently married, living with his life. His friend said, well, let me bring you to a sadhu. And Abhay Charande, as a young man, he said, well, so many sadhus I've seen, all these are Phaltu people. They have nothing to do, I'm not going to go. So his friend said, no, please come. And invited him in front of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur at Ulta Danga, Calcutta. And when Abhay Charan met this Bhakti Siddhanta as a Thakur, his whole life changed. Just with that single association. And that's the power. Therefore it is said, somehow or other one meets a saintly person and receives the favor of that sadhu. Entire mission of one's human life is fulfilled. And now, after talking about Kshetra, Kshetragya, Jnanam, Gneyam, we come to the last subject matter of 13th chapter, that is Purusha and Prakriti. Purusha means enjoyer, Prakriti means enjoyed, like that. So, this is from verse number 20 to 35. So, this chapter concludes a description of the final two, where here Krishna talks about how a living entity is trying to control this world, but does not understand that he is not the Purusha. Rather, he ends up getting exploited. And Chitraketu Maharaj defines this situation very beautifully in a verse in 6th canto, one of my favorite verses, which is very symbolic to this samsara chakra, this wheel. Please repeat after me. Samsara chakra etasmin jantura jnana mohitaha Brahmayam sukham cha dukkham cha bhunkate sarvatra sarvada. Let's take a look at Sanskrit so you get familiar. Bhunkate means enjoys or bhogna. Bhunkate. Sarvatra sarvada. At all times, at all places, circumstances. What is he doing? Bhunkate. Brahmayam sukham cha dukkham cha. At all times, he is experiencing sukha or dukha. Right? Kabhi kushi, kabhi gam, tararam pam. Something like that. There was a song once upon a time, which means life is all about kabhi kushi, kabhi gam. That's what it says. Brahmyam sukham cha dukkham cha. Prior to that, it says, samsara chakra etasmin, jantu, you and I, jantu, ajnana mohita, due to illusion, not knowing who is he, this living entity is caught up in this samsara chakra. How many of you remember seeing the 90s Mahabharata? It will begin with Kal Chakra, like this. What's the idea of Kal Chakra? The chakra refers to, just like, Surya, sunset, sunrise, sunset, sunrise. This is Kal Chakra. Appear, disappear. Similarly, what is samsara chakra for us? Birth, old age, disease, death. Birth, disease, old age, death. Birth, disease, old age, death. It continues on life after life after life. And this living entity, he is trying to enjoy, or he is getting sukha and dukha. And that is what is whole life. Although he does not want dukha, only aspires for sukha. But even what sukha he gets is so fleeting and temporary. And like that, he wastes his life. So, coming to the conclusion, the sixth subject matter, who is the enjoyer? And like I was saying in the beginning, everyone thinks my life is meant to be enjoyed. And I am the enjoyer and I should enjoy and exploit others. Let's take a look at it. What's the perspective of Krishna on this subject matter? Krishna says, what is the difficulty with this understanding to think oneself to be the enjoyer? The first difficulty, resources are limited. When resources are limited, it's not I am only trying to be the enjoyer. You, everyone is trying to become an enjoyer. If all of us are trying to become an enjoyer and resources are limited, there's always going to be a conflict. That's the reason for war and conflict, which means we cannot be happy. And that's the history of the whole world. War has been a constant subject matter of every chapter of our history, yes or no? The themes may have changed, but every chapter of the history had one thing common, war. For what? For resources. So you cannot be. All right, let's make an assumption. Somebody may say, what if we are able to have unlimited resources? Sounds good? Imagine if you have unlimited resources. Each one of us have unlimited resources. Can you be still happy? Why? अरे यार, तुम्हें दुनिया का सबसे बड़ा mansion, no job, salary की चिंता नहीं है, you have the organic food, A2 milk, सब कुछ provide कर दिया गया, अभी भी खुश नहीं हो, बहुत बुरी हालत है, क्यों खुश नहीं हो? Why can't you still be happy or satisfied? Okay, we'll die, what else? Even if we have things in unlimited supply, question is, how long can you enjoy? Let me give an example to help you understand. That's not the menu, but imagine if today evening gulab jamun is being served, and that happens to be your favorite sweet. And imagine in Vedic style, we make you sit on the ground, and then someone comes and he serves everyone. You know, dosa is served, whatever main course is served, and then comes a special sweet gulab jamun, which is your favorite. And this particular server serves everyone two gulab jamun, but to you, only one. कितना बुरा लगेगा? मैंने तेरा क्या बिगाड़ा? Why do bad things happen to good people? खाते खाते भी हमारी एक नजर यहाँ पर, एक नजर यहाँ पे, सामने वाले को भी दो, ये भी दो, मैं ही अकेला, बुरा लगेगा? Fine. This guy accidentally gave you one, something happened. He came back and he realized, oh, I gave this gentleman one. He looks so sad. Maybe he realized, or else you could have acted smartly and you would have said, अरे भैया इसको दो गुलाब जामुन और ला के दो ना. तो वैदिक स्टाइल में मतलब होता है जब आप कहते हो ना इसको ला के दो, इसका मतलब आपको चार खाने इसलिए दो कहे हैं. So if you are smart enough to, you know how to get and ask for more, you say, अरे भैया इसको थोड़ा दो गुलाब जामुन ला के दो. Because he knows when he come and give it to him, he'll ask us, sir आपको भी चाहिए क्या? So imagine you do like this and he comes and gives you and he says, yes, yes, आपने उनको दिया मुझे भी दे दो. And he becomes so happy with you, he gives you 4 गुलाब जामुन. तो आपको 2 मिलने थे, अब आपको 5 मिले. कितना का होगा? अच्छा लगेगा, अच्छा लगेगा? And by this time the server gets to know gulab jamun is your favorite. He makes one more round and he realizes gulab jamun is an extra now. किसी को तो खिलाना है, खत्म करना है, और वहाँ पे हमारा एक गुलाब प्रेमी बैठा है. क्यों ना गुलाब उसी को खिलाया जाए, कम से कम एक तो अच्छा फीडबैक देके जाएगा. तो वो दोबारा आके आपकी प्लेट में 5 गुलाब डाल देता है. पहले आपकी गुलाब की कहानी शुरू हुई थी दुख से, एक क्यों, 4 मिले तो खुश हुए. अभी आपको 5 गुलाब जामुन और मिल जाते हैं तो कितने लोगों का मन बोलेगा, सारा मुझे खिलाओगे, दूसरों को भी तो बांटो. अभी जन कल्याण की भी बात होनी चाहिए. तो चलो आप जैसे तैसे 10 गुलाब जामुन खा गए. वी आर सेइंग यू एंजॉय ईटिंग गुलाब जामुन and imagine gulab jamun is unlimited and he comes and gives you 10 more gulab jamun. Now how many of you will begin to have vomiting session? Raise your hand. How many of you? Raise your hand, quick, quick. Even if resources are unlimited, you cannot enjoy because your senses are limited. Just a common sense. Why do you want to waste your life endeavor with things? That's the point here. Reality check. Can you enjoy? You cannot enjoy. Frustration and dissatisfaction. It's an interesting photo. I'll not go in much detail. If you're from the IT background, you know this is Steve Ballmer, the Nokia CEO. In 2013, prior to 2013, Nokia was valued at $52 billion. And he ended up selling Nokia to Microsoft for around $7 or $8 billion. And that press conference, he began to cry and he said, we didn't do anything wrong. I don't know why we ended up in this situation. Nokia, which was the #1 company in the world, ended up nowhere. The point is, even if everything is there, you cannot have a guarantee to enjoy it always. And that's what was wondering to him. We never did anything wrong. That's the nature. इसलिए चित्तकेतु महाराज कहते हैं, सुखम दुखम एवचा. You continue in that cycle. So who is the enjoyer? Narad Muni says, the best way to enjoy life. A very beautiful example. Please repeat after me. यथा तरोर्मूल निश्चनेना तृप्यन्ति तस्कन्दभुजोपशाखा प्राणोपहारा च यतेन्द्रियाणाम् तथैव सर्वारणमच्युतेच्छा. Narad Muni says, imagine if you are a farmer or a gardener. If you want to nourish a tree or a plant, you cannot nourish the plant or a tree by watering the leaves, twigs, branches, or the trunk. You can nourish the whole plant or a tree by watering the roots. Who is the root of our existence? Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When we try to serve Him, in return, when we water the roots, the trunk, the branches, the leaves, the twigs, the fruits, and the flowers, everything gets nourished. Yes or no? Similarly, when we water the roots, that means when we serve Krishna, then all of us become totally happy. One name of Krishna is Govinda. Govinda means go means cow. Go also means senses. One who gives pleasure to the cow. And Govinda also means one who gives pleasure to the senses. When we serve Govinda, our senses gets the highest satisfaction and perfection. Narad Muni says, therefore, we should serve Krishna. Just like by watering the root, we become happy. The trees is nourished. Second point, why do bad things happen to good people? It's a big subject matter we have discussed before. I'll summarize it here. We need to understand the position of a living entity in this world. There are three things: Prakriti, Purusha, and their union. We are also called as Purusha. Although we are Prakriti, we are energy of the Lord, we are said to be Purusha because we are one in quality with the Lord. Lord being Purusha, we also have that attribute of enjoying. And when this Prakriti plays the role of Purusha and tries to enjoy another Prakriti, which is the energy of the Krishna, then it leads to a very complicated situation. Imagine you are working in an office and company gives you certain facilities for doing your job. Imagine they give you a laptop, they give you a smartphone, exclusively meant for performing your job, but you start using it for personal reason. Would the company take the resource back from you, yes or no? Similarly, everything has been provided by the Lord for the purpose of yatha taror mul nischanena, by watering the root. But when we misuse it, then we are put into a difficult situation. That's the point here. So, why do bad things happen to the good people? Let's take a look at it and understanding what is the purpose of material creation. We asked this question at the beginning to summarize. The purpose of material creation, Mother had answered very nicely to learn lessons. The purpose of material creation is to reform and transform so that we can recover our original constitutional position. This is not an eternal world to live in. This is a temporary halt for us to reform ourselves, free ourselves from kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mad, matsarya, the 6 demonic qualities, develop good conduct and character, and dance to the beautiful melody of the flute of Krishna in the spiritual world. Is to actually graduate from this material world. Therefore, material world act as a university. And everything that happens in our life in this world are a small test for us to meet the ultimate test that is called as death, which is one of the subject matter of Bhagavad Gita, which we discuss in 8th chapter. Death is the final exam. How we perform there will depend and decide. You go back to spiritual world or you continue in the material world. So yes, everything that happens in life, the purpose of this creation is to teach us lessons, but lessons to escape this material world. That's the purpose. To give rebellious jivas a chance to reform their behavior and return back to spiritual world. That's what Krishna says in 13th chapter, verse number 20. So jiva in the world, cause and effect are both handled by material nature. Nothing happens by chance as propagated by scientists. Effect is, let's say somebody has got fever. That is an effect. What is the cause? Somebody has got malaria. What is the cause? For everything there is a cause. However, that's an immediate cause. But actually, what is the cause for everything that happens around here is material nature. Prakriti, Umesh was saying, seed comes from where? Prakriti provides. You have a sunlight, you have a moonlight, you have change of season. Who is managing that? It's all the gifts of the Prakriti. Cause is the Prakriti. If there is no rainfall, that's an effect. Who is the cause, who is the effect? The effect through? That is also Prakriti. So both in cause and effects are managed by Prakriti. So why do bad things happen to good people or why do good things happen to bad people? Is all managed by Prakriti through the law of karma. As you sow, so shall you reap. You might have not done anything wrong in this lifetime, but Prakriti makes a note of everything that you have done in your previous lifetimes. And through that, you are given either the good times or the bad times in your life. So there's nothing called as chance. Everything has a cause. And what is the actual cause? Prabhupada writes in 13.21, living entity is blessed or damned with circumstances according to his past desire and activity. According to one's desires and activities, material nature places one in various residential quarters. This is a house. इसको संस्कृत में मंदिर कहा जाता है. Why? Because living entity and Paramatma resides here. Some of you got a male quarter, some of you got a female quarter. Some of you got a healthy quarter, some of you got a beautiful quarter. Somebody might have got slim quarter, fat quarter. You're getting different types of bodies. Somebody has got a human species, somebody has got animal species. Different living entities are put into different residential quarters by Prakriti. What is that? Karmana Deva Naitrena Jantur Dehe Utpatte. कर्मण दैव नेत्रेना, आपके कर्मफल और दैव के द्वारा आपको जन्म दिया जाता है. Have you ever wondered why did you took birth from particular set of parents? How many of you chose your parents? Raise your hands. At least I didn't choose. Anyone here chose your parents? Forget about you choosing. The parents didn't choose you. How many are parents here? Did any of the parents chose the child you have? Nobody. So the effect is the child. What is the cause? That is Prakriti. That's the point here. The being himself is the cause of his attaining such residential quarters and his attendant enjoyment or suffering. So we, because of past karma, have got a particular situation and a particular womb of a mother and have got a particular body. We are responsible for it. Once placed in some particular kind of a body, some jiva has been put in a body of a dog. You're bound by the conditions of that body. Imagine you're traveling on a highway. You're asking for a lift. Mercedes passes by, it doesn't give you a lift. Then let's say Maruti Swift passes by, it doesn't give you a lift. Finally comes Luna. And Luna वाला आपको लिफ्ट देता है. और आपको पहुंचना है बॉम्बे के एयरपोर्ट. अब आपके उसके कान में कितना भी चीखो जल्दी चला, वो चलेगी 40 की स्पीड पे. Luna cannot go beyond 40. So although you want to run faster, but you are sitting on what? Luna. You are bound by the conditions of Luna. Yes or no? Similarly, if a living entity has got a body of a dog, will have the conditions of a dog. Similarly, of a female and a male, you'll have that conditions. Once placed in some particular kind of body, comes under the control of nature because the body being matter acts according to the laws of nature. How many of you here control the body? Raise your hand. How many of you control your body? Understand or not? Okay, let me put it. How many of you control your heartbeat? How many of you are even conscious of how many times you have breath or how many times you have exhaled? How many of you are consciously taking care, your liver is functioning, your lungs are functioning? How many of you? Hey, none of you? What amount of control you have? On what do you have a control? If you cannot control something which you reside in, and हम यहाँ पे इतने बुलंद हौसलों के दुनिया को कंट्रोल करने के लिए निकले हैं. So that's not possible. At that time, the living entity has no power to change that law. We cannot. We are bound. Suppose an entity is put in the body of a dog. As soon as he's put in the body of a dog, he must act like a dog. He cannot act otherwise. Coming to the concluding, where is my freedom? The living entity, I am dependent influence of material nature. So where is my freedom? It's a big subject, but let me tell you. Okay, everyone, let's do this exercise. Every one of you, please raise your right hand high up. Seedha haath upar uthaiye. All right, put your right hand down. Now raise your left hand up. Okay, when I did this exercise, I want you to observe what's going on in your mind again, okay? I say that once more. Every one of you, please raise both of your hands high up. Okay, put your hands down. Now pay attention. Very tricky, but very important point. How many of you agree it's not important what I said? It's important is, did you agree with what I said? Even I said raise your hand, but it depends on you. Should I raise or not? Because you kindly agreed, so your hands went high. Yes? So now it gives us an indication that I control my hands. If I say, हाथ ऊपर जाओ, ऊपर गया, हाथ नीचे आओ, हाथ नीचे गया. Yes? If I say walk, I walk. All of you made a choice to come here, yes? So our day-to-day experience gives us an understanding that we are the controller of body. But are we really the controller of the body? This is a subject matter which has been studied by psychologists, or scientists. It is called as a body-mind problem. This is my dedicated subject matter. I'm not going to go touch too much. I'll give you one simple example to understand this. For you to act, what is required is desire. So you all agree with this thing? When I said raise your hand, so you agreed for it, which means you had a desire to raise your hand. Yes? Is desire enough to act? Is desire enough to act? If desire is enough to act, desire is in your control, then somebody who has got paralysis, how much ever he or she desire, cannot raise the hand. Yes or no? So desire is also not the controller. The question is, although you desired, but that desire has to be sanctioned. If that desire is sanctioned, you raise. But for one who we call medically paralysis or paralytic, for him, how much ever he may desire, his desire is not sanctioned because he cannot move his hand. Agreed? So question here is, who sanctions? Your desire of raising hand, your desire of speaking, your desire of sleeping, your desire of eating, ahar nidra bhai maithuna. Who sanctions? Is this making sense? Is this question making sense? Who sanctions? 13th chapter, verse number 23, Krishna says, Upadrashta, Anumanta, Bharta, Bhokta, Mahaishvara. Anumanta, permitter. I give permission. Upadrashta, I am the overseer. Bharta, Bhokta, Mahaishvara, I am the supreme controller, fully independent Swaraj. You are not Swaraj. If I don't give you permission, you cannot do anything. So where is my freedom? At all times, we are just a mercy candidate. How many times parents go through with kids, and you would have gone through with your parents, where your parents would have expected you to produce a certain amount of results, where you couldn't meet that and parents put a lot of pressure, and there could be another brother or friend of yours who without any much pressure could really do a lot of things. Why so many discrepancies and discrimination exist? It's just because of Upadrashta Anumanta. And the Lord does not do any partiality. Lord sanctions based on your past actions. You go to bank account, you go to bank manager, you ask for a loan. Before he sanctions a loan, he will see what in return are you willing to give. What is your capacity according to which loan is sanctioned? And that is called as law of karma. So where is my freedom? Fourth, the three doers. So every desire what we have is, we are not the alone who fulfills that. And the example is, which I already gave you, it is I who desire, it is super soul Anumanta who permits or rejects, and it is Prakriti who facilitates it. For example, Jiva, he desires to want, or he wants to purchase a Honda City. Imagine it's a 15 lakh car. Unless it is sanctioned by Ishvara, how much ever you keep dreaming about it, doesn't happen. But imagine now Ishvara has sanctioned. Now what is the sanction of Ishvara? Ishvara means suddenly turn of events will happen in your life. You might get promotion. Your loan may get sanctioned. How many of you agree things have happened in your life and you wonder, यार इतने समय से रुका हुआ था, अचानक हो गया? How many of you have that experience? At least this much sense we have. That is a sanction of Ishvara. Unless that happens, how much ever you may try, how many times have you had an experience, you have tried again and again, despite numerous attempts, sometimes it just doesn't work and you wonder why it is not working. How many of you have had that experience? Ishvara is not sanctioning, and sometimes you're not even trying. And it works. And you wonder, ye kya hua? We all have that experience. That is sanction. So when Ishvara sanction, then what does Ishvara do? He directs that sanction to his energy, that is Prakriti. Ishvara sanction based on your karma credit, pious, impious credit based on that, and then Prakriti. Therefore, pious actions are given so much weightage in Vedic culture that everyone should live a pious life, so that only then you can be happy. Have you noticed, if in case you come from village background, in village people may have less to eat, may have less facility, maybe not much internet connection and all that, but they're still healthy? Yes or no? How many of you agree? Please raise your hand. They're more healthy. In city, they may have more comfort of living. They may have an AC, they may have a car to travel, they may have a Netflix to watch, they may have all kind of food to eat. They may have all the money they wanted, for which they left village, came here, but they're more sickly and they're more diseased. Raise your hand. What is the point? The idea is the more we come to city, we get into a lot of activities which are irreligious and which, because of which we keep on building our pap karma and we continue to suffer. And all that hard-earned money goes generally in either court cases or medical bill. Ishvara instructs Prakriti, and it is Prakriti who performs action. It is through Prakriti manager sanctions. It is through Prakriti your manager sanctions your promotion. Like that, your desire gets fulfilled. So there are three doers, not one doer: Ishvara, Jiva, Ishvara, and Prakriti. And when your desires are fulfilled, after which you know that what you had been longing for, which you get it, after that again you get frustrated because ye dil mange more. Even if your desire is fulfilled, you're frustrated. And when your desire is not fulfilled, you're still frustrated. End result is frustrated. Therefore, Krishna says this material world is dukhalaya. Hence proved. Is that okay? Now moving forward, Arjuna pondered, my dear Lord, how can a common man understand all this thing? How to understand? Krishna says, bhakti is the easiest. What are the things we have to do? Take shelter of purity, which means, in other words, like Prabhupada Bhagavad Gita, get connected with devotee forum, attend programs whenever possible, once in a week at least. Here, as much as regularly, we provide online programs on everyday basis. You can start from 4:30 in the morning, first program happens in any of the ISKCON temples. Even at Hinjawadi, we have 4:30 morning live streaming. The 7:45 program, we have multiple online programs everyday basis, and plus weekly sessions that happen. Hear about it and learn from them and follow in their footsteps. That's the only thing we have to do, and so easy to bring about a transformation. And the last thing, what is the vision of a transformed person or a transcendentalist? Krishna says, such a person is a true seer. He can see even if he is blind. Our eyes are not the means by which we see. Our eyes are just some mechanical instrument. It is our mind's perception through which we see. Yes or no? If in case, let's say some of you ever had, let's say hypothetically, you drank गन्ने का जूस रोड साइड में मिलने वाला, उसको पीने के बाद आपको फूड पॉइजनिंग हो गया. इमेजिन every time when you will cross and you will see that juice wala, what will you see? Not juice. What will you see? Food poisoning. You don't see from the eyes. What you see is the perceptions which have been created. It's just a mechanical instrument. So, seer does not necessarily have to have a physical eyes. We see with our state of consciousness. So that's the point here. Can distinguish between spirit and matter. He understands the soul and the spirit soul, and he knows I do not act. Paramatma, Atma do not act. It is the body under the laws of material nature act. What are the activities of the soul? The soul does nothing, nor does it mix with the body, but it does, however, illumine the body with consciousness. What is death? When that consciousness is withdrawn from the body, that is called as death. And as long as consciousness is in the body, even if you are in coma, you're not called clinically dead. But once consciousness is withdrawn once a spirit soul leaves the body. That is called as death. And like this very important 6 questions, which I said in the beginning are the fundamental constituents of Vedic philosophy. Kshetra, what is Kshetra? The field of action, which is body. Kshetrajna, the knower of the field. Who is that? Atma, Paramatma. Jnanam, the process of knowledge. Character versus caliber. Process of knowledge begins with amanitvam, humility. Character counts. Good conduct counts. Uske baad, Gneyam, object of knowledge. What is object of knowledge? To understand soul and super soul. Soul is unborn, indivisible. Super soul, however, is omnipresent, omniscient. And there is a difference between Atma and Paramatma. And then Purusha and Prakriti. Purusha, there is only one Purusha who is fully Swarat, there is a Supreme Lord. To be called as an enjoyer, you can only call as enjoyer if you have a controller. Imagine you are driving a car. You can only enjoy driving the car if car is within your control. Yes or no? You can only control the car if you're actually the owner. Why would somebody give his car to you? Yes or no? So you can only be an enjoyer when you're a controller and when you're an owner. Are we the owner? Are we the controller? We have hardly any control on our own body. And हम यहाँ चले हैं दुनिया पे control करने. So like that, Krishna speaks about the subject matter of Purush and Prakriti. And this is how the subject matter of Jnana Yoga section begins. This is just the beginning of this last series. And after this, next week when we'll meet is such a practical and important subject matter. If you are a working employee, housewife, or whoever it is, this is a must attend subject matter titled Puppet Show. Chapter name is Modes of Material Nature. It talks about how everything about your existence is controlled and influenced. Sattva gun, Rajagun, and Tamogun. If you want to make a change in your life, you got to understand how these three modes function. And you have to move from one mode to another mode. And if you can understand the science, you can do anything and everything. I generally say, who understand the subject matter, they become a fortune teller, which means they can tell their own future if they know how the modes of material nature function. This is called as the puppet show, which we'll see next time. I am not showing a puppet show. You are the puppet. We're going to introduce how puppeteer functions with us as a puppet and how we are controlled by that. With that, thank you for your kind attention.